Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final Common Sense reading for the spring or of the spring, featuring this afternoon's readers, Joseph Bradshaw, Emily Kendal Frey, and Sylvia Jones. For those of you who are attending for the first time, I'm Jordan Stempelman. I started this series back in 2011 in Kansas City, Missouri. And since the pandemic, I've moved half of the readings each year to this online format. And we were just talking about this before you came in, and how kind of awful these online readings were when we had to do them. And now that they're an option, I'm really grateful for this format, so I can bring these wonderful writers in who probably couldn't have come in otherwise, and disrupted their lives. So this is great. I've archived past readings at my website. So let me go ahead and put a link there to my website, because in the next day or two, this reading will appear archived on there. There's other great readings from the past couple of years on there as well. Before I start, or before I introduce this afternoon's readers, please feel free to respond to them in the chat. There'll be a brief Q&A following the reading, so please post any questions you may have for the readers in the chat. I'll be sure to ask them on your behalf. And if you writers have questions for one another, that's always wonderful as well. So if something comes up when you're listening to one another, feel free to ask any of those questions. All right, so our first reader today is Joseph Bradshaw. And Joseph's most recent publication is a chapbook, Subtraction. He currently lives in Oakland, California. And Joseph supplied that intro, that short bio, but there's so much more to Joseph than that. Joseph has taught me so much about poetry. He's taught me so much about friendship. He has written an incredible work called The New York School and In the Common Dreams of George Oppen. He's got an incredibly dexterous mind, and I'm really excited. I would love if Joseph was right here in this Airbnb with me, sitting next to me reading, but I'm really thankful to have him here today, and I'm really thankful that he'll be sharing his work with you. Please welcome Joseph Bradshaw.
All right. Thank you, Jordan. That was really nice. And thank you for setting this up and hosting us today. I agree. This is a nice format. It's seems somehow less stressful than it did a couple of years ago. But I'm going to read today from this chapbook, Subtraction. Came out about a year ago. It's they're sonnets. This is the first one. It's called Peaches. Now listen, Joseph, enough pale bile. There's nothing in that drawer. You're in danger of losing friends, boring readers, boring husbands and tigers, fellow employees, the forest's corpuscent night, even God who died, who eats the living. Oh, his pain and its unwavering, gaping whiteboards of neon outlined lambent blank ellipses. Oh, he will be, oh, he'll mightily be much and so very, so verily he will be, oh, he, like a toilet of peaches, juice running down his neglected beige teeth, he will be bored. So hear me now, odd moon. All the disgraces that keep us breathing, don't forget those who abandon themselves. Unleashed. I ward it off so you don't have to escheweth, friends, that which clogs your eyes. I do it without couth, without sprites. No, that's not true. I do it because, actually, I don't remember why. Maybe I do it, therefore I lie. I don't know why I got no shame, applause. I don't know why I parade my faux pas before their atrophied banality. Anxious, oh me, I'm probably sorry, just a sliver off always subfusc face. That's a long time cradling the unease that drags the eyelids through carrions of grace. That's a long time to remain unleased. This one's called The Mirror. I ward it off so you don't have to say sorry, ouch, get out of my way, or mene mene tekel upharsin. You know you can't read what's not herein. I ward it off so you don't have to stay asleep much longer. You shouldn't doze through what comes after this poem is finally done. Air, crickets, air, laughter, shots fired in air. As long as I last, this I do swear, I'll drain remissions of consciousness from you who can neither dream nor become. From you I'll bend these bars and smiling egress. Come tell me, Joseph, are all the fables I spin spun wholly within your flat gaze? Daniel 5:24. That's the verse where the disembodied hand of God appears before the wall, where the prophet Daniel was called to interpret in front of all of these heathen kings this weird inscription, which was in the last poem, Mene Mene Tekel Upharsin. Anyway, many, many tickled parsnips. At least he thought that's what he read. Maybe it was any moneyed pickled ketchup, or soon enough you're all drawn and quartered. There were smudges around the letters, little whispers he could hardly heed. He thought he heard a mister tell him he's wise, but his smile, if he did, went awry. Perhaps Mr. was just in his head. Maybe there was no severed hand. Maybe the wicked stalk us to and fro, in and around. Is that what the wall said? He looked about, the room exclusively scoria, 100 seizing eyes and none proofreading. Xeroxes. I ward it off so you don't have to see there's no salvation, just a desperate dash home. No medications long as styrofoam. I weird it off so you don't have to leave your quickening agency unborn. No spite for milk, no cries of crypto ruin. I worm it off so you don't have to slink toward a godless glow. Balsamic thine eye, your birth sky's eager sluicing your shabby sheets. But maybe I don't have to fight for what I mind to lose anyway. Maybe, Joseph, you were right. I cremate the love I love with my love with love, then sleep till you are out of stock. The angry dew. What we think of as ashes chant for us. I don't know, they sing. Do we live? I don't know. I don't. When we think of the ashes as snacks brim the coffin, I'm hungry, we cry. It's too stuffed to move. It's an angry dew weighing against dawn's downy grass. That's what we picture when we think of ashes. That dew, unkind, vectors. It ushers the ending of our losing battles, the privacy of blood. As we picture the drip, it scalds. The ashes, their soft lips, scold. This one's called Hepatic Light. The stars whose eyes are trained on us, staring each night, tracking our dreams, are false. Their light's importunate lit, their light's paucity, their beauty, by and for the cruel. As ashes aerosol, a joy forever ever, if withstood, stars beckon, ancient sparkles sickening our sleep and soothing us. We become placeholders. We become done, accomplished, dreaming what they crave of dream, so through our veins they might stream again. Selfless, we absentees burdened to sleep, we severed resemblances. As ashes aerosol, they fix our mouth to say, it does not search hepatic light, it does not bleed. Pink volcano. Our God's the lava and he's no lie, no pump and dump, no head fakes. We're torrified. No, he does not make his own bed. He spins hither and yon, around, and his ear is an empty turn. We churn and we writhe till we resume ourselves. Our God's rest is precarious. His lids flutter. His unconscious fingers flick the leash encircling disaster's throat. We churn, yanked all around, and his smile remains inscrutable. He's not wounded by our tin curses. That's candy from us, who in our God are friends, rooting for our terror and our mend. The serpent. Filth, through one end absorbed, through the other rejected, even more corrupt. Some call this process laughter. Some call it birth or that, time off from work, canceled seasons, surplus friends. It is repulsive, some say. It is flawed in all its parts. Some say they ought to revolt against human misery, and some cry, and some poults keep laughing as it coils around the roots of heaven. Some steal the spoils that others suffer, and some part, while some embrace what they wreck. Some forget they reek, and some are not desired and flawed in all their parts. The indissoluble veil. I'm almost gone, so hoist me into the indissoluble veil. It helps me see you better in the matrical mud. I'm nearly done, so strain yourself. Pour toward me till you press the cloth. Let your eyes bathe in the matrical scud. That matrix pretexts me as you squeeze and grunt against my veil, my love, my carrier, matrical stud. And then that man grew old and faded. Some cried. And when the janitor asked how he lived, they replied, he splashed. And when the janitor bid, who splashed you? They answered, some who saw those we outgrew. All right, I'm gonna read one more. And this one's called The First Song. That was the story of these blockages, the first song we almost wrote together. You can't recall it either? It started, fix dust, dry steam, consecrate, common woe be done. We called it Gatorade, the song we almost made. There were no captions for the blockages. The actors playing as squirmed affectations, nearly human affection. They mimed in silence what the blockages capture in their unsounds in us. They're not quite almost airless, and their sighs leak our song's ending. God's gift is death, his curse the tongue, and his smile is our breath. All right, thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Joseph. That was great. That was wonderful. I think that's the first poem I've ever heard a janitor mentioned, which is a shame, which is really a shame. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's tons of janitor poems that you all know about. If so, share them with me. Our second reader is going to be Emily Kendal Frey. And Emily lives in Portland, Oregon, and she's the author of several chapbooks and chapbook collaborations, including The Grief Performance and Sorrow Arrow, which won the Oregon Book Award. And her latest collection, Lovability, is out from Phonograph Editions. It's a really, really good book. They are a practicing psychotherapist. Please welcome Emily Kendal Frey.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. I'll just jump right in. I'm gonna read a poem from this book, Lovability. It's called The Sad Side of Spring. Seems appropriate. My heat is on really loud. Can y'all hear me? It's okay? Yeah, okay. The Sad Side of Spring. Next to the ocean, I know I am dying. Early this morning, the adjoining walls of our dreams collapsed. When I drive through a forest, I don't stop. Come back to the city, smeared, and nothing gets it off. I don't intend to know who I am. Ocean, pulsing white pith. Don't be sad if someone dies. They saw it coming at least a beat before you did. No tether to my bloom, the root hung, I did not know who I was. I escaped the smallest opening, an octopus squeezing her body through. They put barbed wire around tents under the freeway. The city is deciding where people can live. I used to pick you up from work 8 miles north. Coffee spilled on my lap. I lived in hope. It flowed through my body on the roads I took, a giant, ugly stain. Power beats its drug in the glass organs of those who claim power. Someone put God in those camellias. People love you, they can't help it. No longer does the vibrating clit of anger get me off. My head is tight with mystery not yet exploded. We bought sausages, burned them to a good taste. I forgot my swimsuit, walked down to the ocean, past a pile of dead bees. Becoming a cloud means more available vastness. Growing up is not the same as waking up. I used to live in a place that hurt, mostly because of the trees I was wedged between. I've loved a few people who refused to exercise the human condition. They sat inside the cave near the opening with drying fur, never dry. I cut a star from the moon's middle, made a life bigger than my inherited fear. Safeway and stinging nettles, last kid left in the parking lot. Hurt tomorrow with my grip on infinity, picked flowers from dents, flung them down. In the grief circle, I decorate a box with the cosmos. When it falls open, oh, I say, forgive me. The woman across from me has eyes so kind, I'm almost angry. God is either inside or outside this room. No one chose what they came with. Now we sit and pretend to let it go. I am late to my life. Why is the neighborhood still alive with exes? Our coping mechanisms are alienating us from the planet. Capes of ash, warming an ancient fire. Send an alert. I've revised several of my stances. Dreamed mushrooms grew on a past life. I cut them in pieces, ate. Technology invented nostalgia. Sepia dreams with soundtracks. Now hats can't be worn without irony. I'm wasting a lot of good sorrow on this relationship. Everyone wants to love you. So when no one does, touch your toes. Taco Bell, a mirage in the city's embroidery. I scratched your back like it was 1970. sibling love splashed on the oven range. It's more fun to have a hot and boisterous partner, though we all fiddle with wound security, scratch the top off and get back in after the lilacs or whatever are done blooming. I name you Yellow Heart. Mist hangs over the river. My uncle died suddenly. The trees are as beautiful as they can be. I drive with the wish to float gently over the center line. I don't have to acknowledge your vest or your choice of beverage. This is the day I eliminate desire from my to-do list. Buying a pregnancy test for a friend, I saw your brother. A hilarious charade ensued. You know how it ends. Both of us in our beds, trying to remember the color of each other's hair. So that's that poem. Intermission. Next poems. It is a little weird that it's just vast blankness, but I'm gonna adjust so I see more of you. There we go. Okay. So I see Joseph and Jordan and Sylvia. Hi, yay. Okay, you're there. Okay. I think I have a few more minutes. Yeah. Like.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So I'll read. So my father died about 2 months ago, and so I'm like in this thing of it. But about a year ago, I started writing these poems to my dad, because I was thinking about our relationship and how he was getting old. So I thought I would try reading a few of these poems that I wrote to my dad, because I think it's good to read new stuff, and it scares me, so I'm going to do that because it scares me, and I think it's maybe you'll appreciate that, or there'll be something here for y'all. Okay, so they're just these little like little letters, little prose poems. That's how they look. Dad. It's awkward how we talk, guarded, formal, pleasant, tense. Matt says it sounds like I'm ordering something, like I'm trying to make nice so I'll get my way. I guess that's how it feels. Do we even like each other? Do you have to trust someone to like them? We're squared off. No, we're at a diagonal. I'm at an angle to you. I have been my whole life. There's kindness, but it's a brittle nest. How do we get this way? Is this how we'll be? There's not a lot of time. I think about this, you, us, every day. Love, Emily. Dad, I'm tearing up and this is only page 3. I'm not about to get my period. I got enough sleep. This is something I hold every day, a big cup brimming. I'm turning to it, getting closer, my tiny car rounding the bend to the ocean, and suddenly it clicks into view. It's vast and it won't be contained. It won't be named. My words will dot the edges. Love, Emily. Dad, sometimes I realize I'm just sitting here doing nothing to prevent my dad from dying. Time is sneaking on, sweeping us with it. Shouldn't I fight back? I could buy you a sweatshirt with a mountain on it. I could address some things. Assuming there are many invisible knots lining your body, could I help undo some or one? Could I find the hinge and spring you free? I guess that's the old thinking. Dad, oh, love, Emily. I don't think I'm going to say love, Emily anymore. I don't like that. I don't like how that sounds. I'm adjusting. Dad, I moved back west because everyone I knew was having babies or buying houses. I lived with you for a while. You spent time in the side yard trying to wrest a stump from concrete. You had long hair. You wore a blue bandana like Willie Nelson. He's just trying to get attention, we said to each other. It's my chance to do this, you said. Maybe you were experimenting with freedom. You'd been given a night blooming cereus and its fragrance woke me musky and ripe. I stumbled into the living room and knelt down in front of it, changed. Do you know what do y'all know what that flower is, a night blooming cereus? It's like that white flower that comes out of this cactus and it just opens once in the middle of the night and it emits this scent. So that's what I'm talking about. My dad had one. I stumbled into the living room and knelt down in front of it, changed. Later, I got the same white blossom tattooed on my forearm. To keep me close to mystery, I'd explain, or say something about awe and dads. But the story got lost on you. I feel sentimental when I look at my body and alone like childhood, approval doled out for the wrong reasons. The bright petals come out of my mind. I hold my arm to the light. I'll just read about 2 more of these. Dad, tonight in the Toni Morrison book club, we talked about a mercy. I think I liked it more than everyone else. I struggled to be specific. I'm always aiming for the edge, for wide language. I read to contain what I can't. B suggested we talk in an organized way, but I don't want to be organized. I want to say what moves me. I want to hear what other people feel and what that was like. I don't care about making a point. I wonder if you've read any Toni Morrison. Her books showed me a world I could recognize as one I was shaped by. When I try to show you who I am, you either approve or you don't. I don't flip through the book. I don't tie passages together. I don't say smart things. I sit there, the words running up and down, escaping me, leaving the top of my head like smoke. I sit there holding what I can for as long as I can, letting the words become a body that can die. Okay. Actually, there's 2 more. I lied. Dad, there's a story about your dad promising you a watch if you never started smoking. I know it's kind of weird. Offering the same bet to your 2 brothers, but not your 2 sisters. Sandy smoked, Dick smoked, you didn't smoke. But where's the watch? Life seems like a bargain no one keeps. I wonder if you feel that way. Why be good if we get punished anyway? We don't get what we want. You moved out of the house, left your daughters, tried again with a new person, with new children attached. You didn't win the bet then either. When I think of that time, I see a telephone pole with layer after layer of paper tacked onto it. The staple's rusty and it's raining. The paper is soft and wet like fur. And I guess that's life sogging away, matter but formless. No one can read the words. Dad, for Christmas, you gave me a fertility stick. I was about 28 and I lived in Boston, so it came through the mail in a big, long box. I was enraged. What is he trying to say? How out of touch can you get? I put it in the closet. It was, truthfully, a weird and insensitive gift. It was also from one of those world market type places that white people go to buy stuff that doesn't belong to their culture so they can feel like they're a part of something. But stealing the thing and then buying it back doesn't make babies grow. I wonder sometimes about the figures on the stick, what they've seen, what they'd say about this, whose side they'd be on. The universe is made of wood and water and bones. I'll miss you. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much, Emily. That was beautiful. was really beautiful. I'm always aiming for the edge for wide language as well. That's great. Our final reader tonight is Sylvia Jones. And Sylvia is a writer, an educator, and a prison abolitionist. She earned her MFA from American University in Washington, D.C., and recently served as the 21-22 Stadler Fellow at Bucknell University. She's the associate poetry editor at Black Lawrence Press and works part-time teaching creative writing and composition at Goucher College and George Washington University. And she's also the first reader for the journal Plowshares. She's very busy. Her most recent writing appears in Smartish Pace, Sprung Formal, Revolute, Diagram, the Hopkins Review, Poet Lore, Spilt Milk by the Poetry Society of New York, Shenandoah, and the Cortland Review. She lives in Baltimore with her partner, Agata, and their tabby cat, Theo. And when not teaching or editing other people's work, Sylvia can be found birdwatching or chipping away at the manuscript for her own debut collection of poems dealing with ancestral memory, loss, hero worship, upward mobility, and other notions of class inequality. I'm really excited to hear Sylvia. I first encountered Sylvia's work as part of the Windfall Room, and Sylvia did this amazing poem recitation, and we did a gallery exhibition of a few of these poems, and I would just sit in the gallery and listen to all of them. And I remember sitting in front of Sylvia's over and over and over again. So please welcome Sylvia Jones.
Thank you so much, Jordan. That was a hell of an introduction. So thank you. And I guess Emily and Joseph, it's really an honor and pleasure to just come in the presence of your work as well as to follow it. Such great readings. I've actually included, the poems. I was just gonna add them in the thing. I guess I'll start with the poem from the recitation because I think it's really fun to read. And I think it's a ars poetica in that it engages poetry. And it's kind of a commentary on poetry, but I like to think of it as like revisionist history. Robitussin and Tromeline. I licked Gwendolyn Brooks' grave in a fever dream. I wasn't afraid of dying on the flight home. Dextromorphetan. I was better with words when I wasn't with them. Little is new written small on a mirror in Philadelphia next to the hole in the wall in the shape of my running body. One ear than the other, barely visible in the dust of the standing crowd. So much is different, but I am not better. In my literary dreams, Carl Phillips plays me, playing myself. Norman Mailer gives me a hand job. During intermission, Susan Sontag whispers in my ear that she has to go to the bathroom. Perhaps this is blasphemous, but Phil Levine is there too, I swear to God, in the bathroom with Susan, together in perfect unison, reciting Auden. I think I also really enjoyed this poem, which is really a poem about probably, the instructor I had in undergrad that told me about MFA programs, that you could get into a graduate school without having good grades. So that really saved my life. But this is after David Woljan, a really great instructor who's still teaching at VCU and Vermont College of Fine Arts, I believe. So on a line by Woljan, put a sparrow in the poem and make sure you do not become this sparrow. Put a sparrow in the poem and make sure you do not become this sparrow. Put a sparrow in the poem and make sure you do not become this sparrow. Put a sparrow in the poem and make sure you do not become this sparrow. Put a sparrow in the poem and make sure you do not become this sparrow. Put a sparrow in the poem and make sure you do not become this sparrow. Put a sparrow in the poem and make sure you do not become this sparrow. Put a sparrow in the poem and make sure you do not become this sparrow. Put a sparrow in the poem and make sure you do not become this sparrow. Put a sparrow in the poem and make sure you do not become this sparrow. Put a sparrow in the poem and make sure you do not become this sparrow. I was thinking about a poem that's also based off of an art that is one of my favorite pieces of art. It's called La Vida. And it's really a great piece. I'm gonna put a link to, I guess, Yale University has it on their website. It's by Martin Wong, and this is a ekphrastic in response to this painting by a phenomenal painter and queer icon for me, a North Star, I think, Martin Wong. But I think the fun thing about this painting that I didn't mention is it's very big, and apparently, it's kind of a celebratory modeling of urban life. But if you like squint, like Mr. T is somewhere here. It's kind of like a Where's Waldo, but it's rumored that Mr. T, yeah, and this like small, I don't know if you see in the window to the very bottom on the right, that's like Mr. T. Yeah, so anyway, to the poem. You flutter your hands rapidly by your side. Where in the world, maybe in spring, do grandmothers hide all the juniper secrets? A lavender snow at sunset is a hand moving glacially with its index finger outstretched far past February. Through the side door only, I think I was born thinking. In a drained quarry, brown recluses dangle there now, meant for dawn's glib yellowing. Us fashioned increasingly abstract, whirling like two black backsliding mechanical pencils. I grew up in this house. I wanted to arrive at this point, but I didn't know how to get there. I grew up in this house. My mom grew up in this house, unanimously wanting out what the wind might do next. From the inside out of a drop-kicked fog, feet scuffling gravel, today's the day recycling comes. Later on, I will watch a man wrap his car into a tree and listen for the people melting into the trees. If only pushing away could pass as an admirable way to love something back. I grew up in this house. My mother's grew up in this house. We walked in through the side door only. Yeah, I think there's a huge part of my work that is deeply always just kind of interested in the meta commentary of responding to a different work. And that's what this next piece will be. And this is based off of an incredible painting that I have not had the pleasure of seeing in person. The La Vida I was fortunate enough to see in real life. It was like the first time I've been to New Haven, and I just stumbled onto this, it's like a wall size of a painting. But this just really struck me, I think, looking through this artist's portfolio. And this is someone who passed, Noah Davis, I think in 2009, he was a really young painter. This one's called Man with Shotgun and Alien, and it takes its name from the Noah Davis painting. Okay. Man with Shotgun and Alien. Selling 2-minute clocks high above and out of focus paths, invisible from the street. My first decapitation was a sweetheart in the backseat hereafter of a good pollen-covered car. Glass arched under the whirring ceiling fan, pounding mornings in the floor with my moonroof forehead. The more cars they make, the more people they die. The more people die. All it takes is a half inch of another moment's sigh. Sometimes it's good to be afraid of the future. It's the year of that feeling everyone has when they're dancing. And I'm not lonely because I'm friends with my neighbors. And my childhood home is an Airbnb, is a brothel, vacationing millennials and hallelujah money. It's the bootstrap trick mirror waiting with bated breath. I lost my face, or the face I had. When you're inside the bank, everyone knows you're robbing it. The more cars they make, the more people die. When was the last time we had fun? This next poem, I think, is a little more levity to it. It's called On the Tiniest of Budgets. And I was fortunate to have it in Poet Lore, have it find a home in Poet Lore last spring. So it's kind of about an encounter where, you're like being solicited, but it's also just about like the quasi pseudo like spiritual landscape of today, online and in real life. I think very commercial, but also just very still, I don't know, just extremely lopsided, and whether or not this is real or not. This is just my experience, or a reimagining of an experience I feel like I'm always having. On the tiniest of budgets, I buy a Groupon for a palm reading downtown from a woman halfway leaning off a circa 97 purple Mitsubishi, halfway facing a valet kiosk couched between a corner store and two different $40 hourly 10-level parking garages adjacent to the Spiritual Information Center. Sporting windbreaker Adidas shorts beneath a ruined plaid vest, battered loafers, and finished off with church-going socks, detailing a demon summoning gone wrong, dealing blackjack off a tarot deck, simultaneously playing spades, simultaneously trying to sell me a blue rock for $100. Yeah, very allegorical, that one. This is another poem kind of about talking about being broke. I think that's the best way to summarize it. And yeah, kind of a whim associative piece, offshore in a rotunda. I think I don't really understand offshore, yeah, like the energy source of that. And I think this was me kind of like using marketplace phrasing one day in like a stoned rant. Offshore in a rotunda, full of vocal fry interpreters. The chick getting her hair done across from me is talking about picking up other people's energies at the grocery store. My sister used to cry when my dad got haircuts. It's like my uterus's desire to kill me is stronger than the sun. A spiritual Brillo pad rubbing against an open wound, froth rolling static, late night stoner fodder. Your fucking organs don't understand economics or financial stability. A car ride to the hospital costs as much as an ambulance nowadays anyway. Anyhow, my phlebotomist says my legs are crawling into my ass. Rolling, frothing static. Very, yeah, I wouldn't say cynical. This is a piece that I'm excited to have be in the upcoming Sprung Formal issue. That's somewhat about family and somewhat about poetry. Gorbachev dies August 2022. Well, I guess I'll say the title, Another Violent Inflection Point. And I just keep hearing inflection point, and I, yeah, really like the phrase. So Another Violent Inflection Point is the title of the poem. Gorbachev dies August 2022, and all the pictures of Robert E. Lee got taken down upstate at West Point, my cousin Noah said to my Uncle Rob, who told Grandma, who then called and told me earlier today between meetings that Stephen Biko's forehead looked shiny as hell in an old photo on TV. As everyone's inflation worries ebbed, I always wondered why hurting stands so much and how well I'm metabolizing my antidepressants. Like peace to the mind, health to the body. I hate seeing the dykes not get what they deserve. I hang out on a subreddit devoted to people seeking help. See how the poem creates time and distance? What better boosts the floating offshore wind energy? The blue-black box of sitting down on the couch and whining, or an unedited brightness across the room? Yeah, this is a short poem. I'm gonna do a couple more short poems and then, yeah, this is called A Hurt Mouth Amount. A hurt mouth amount. The less I check the weather app, the better the weather gives. This is another poem about family. And I just wanted to say I really appreciate what you shared about your late dad, Emily. There's a poem here that, yeah, I think this poem is me trying to figure that out, but also figure out what that meant for my voice, right, too. So It's actually like something that is kind of an ode to two poets I really love, Toy Derricott and Charles Simic. And this was like way before he had passed. But yeah, it's called Fast Backwards, and it's in the Santa Clara Review. But there's two lines in the poem that are from a poem by Toy Derricott and from a poem by Charles Simic. So Fast Backwards. Isms aside, conjuring Derricott, I see my father after his death in Baltimore, covered in soot, shopping for groceries at the 24-hour Giant. Then again, hurtling through the dark outside a Bronx alehouse, punching the air behind me, sighting Simic, the blood-curdling shriek of my mother audible. What registers first is this kind of subsonic rumble following a glance, yet there he is, slouched as a French horn, sitting on a nocturnal pew, giving away golden parachutes, pacing in continuous circles, quicker than a soft-boiled egg peeling its own shell, thin as an antenna bending into a Medusa curl, reneging on tomorrow. Seeing him feels like naysaying, down an engine of hilarious grief. All those fat rodents sounding violently like tires, oozing into a Rottweiler. Yeah, I guess I'll probably, yeah, this is one that's kind of also about family too. It's about family and poetry a little bit. It's called Bob Kaufman-like Tendencies. But I think, yeah, the humor's there. My mom doesn't know who Bob Kaufman is, so she'll think this is an homage to her dead ex-husband, my former, now late stepfather, who once attempted to get me and my brother, when we were minors, to invest in a Ponzi scheme with our confirmation money. Yeah, I'm really most proud of this piece that's also coming out in Sprung Formal. And I think I was so happy because I think it's probably a newer poem, right? But it's one of those poems that's like, oh, is this going to get placed somewhere? Is someone going to be offended? But I feel like, yeah, the leaning into an almost automatic reciprocation from the editorial staff really just like made me feel yeah, it really placated those qualms, those whatever, like trying to, like, I don't know, test the waters. I never know what people are reading and like what they're critically thinking about. I guess that's why I'm writing poetry. But also, yeah, it's really one of those things where I just started adjuncting. And I was thinking about how when I was in school, we didn't really have like shooter drills and like any of that, and like how different it is to just be on the other side of that. And I can't imagine, even though I am teaching, what it must be like to really be a student sometimes, because that was not a part of my reality as a student. So this is a response to that, because the idea of having kids is much older than mass shootings. Together, wherever they are, at the bar in heaven, or perhaps some different room altogether, or maybe even right here, right now, like us on this stain-ridden mattress, California Queen, we smuggled out from your cousin's basement after Hurricane blank. I went downstairs for a nap and met our doubles fast awake and steadily gene splicing our ghosts as we slept like newborns. Second chances downstairs taking old doors because you've had a scare of knowing all the poisonous berries in Pakistan. If I need a new kidney, why does it matter if I'm Black or white or Hispanic? The sleeping man in the entrance of the elementary school had a giant guest bag. Another extraordinary harmonica player. Another extraordinary harmonica player. And you'd say everyone has a shark that they think is a life jacket. And then I'd say you're sunbathing, but there's no sun out. Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Thank you. Thank you. I hit my knee. But I'm gonna spotlight Joseph, and I'm gonna spotlight Emily. And you all can unmute yourselves. And I'm going to open up some questions to everyone in the room. If you have any questions for the writers, feel free to put them into the chat. And if not, that's fine. And if you all have questions for one another, like I said, that's wonderful too. I know I have one question, which is, you all are so adept at avoiding escapism in your work. I think there's a directness in your work that's really and a courageousness in your work, and a measure of levity as well, and I'm just wondering how you all get to that point, or how do you know when you're in that kind of that zone where you're not maybe avoiding something, and when you're not so close that you maybe cut the oxygen out of the room for your reader. Because that's something that, I think that I'm always talking to my students about, like, how do you find that place where you feel like it's a place of honesty and confrontation, maybe isn't the right word, but how do you find that distance that is really, really close, but not suffocating? And we can wait a second, y'all can think about it. Whoever wants to answer first.
I think off the top of my head, I'm always thinking about the use of Kamanyaka, right? The Venus flytrap. So I think for me, it's always going to be about the image. If like the thing, very often the thing I think that is the genesis of the poem for me is just the image, but the image can also be like a line of dialogue too. And I think the trick is kind of like working that out, maybe somehow, if I'm good to the poem, if the speaker is good to it.
Can I ask you more about that?
Yeah. I guess it's about like, I think the line break is like its own thing. Like that's kind of like syntax, right? But so if by the time I know what the image is as a reader, if the metaphor can like justify itself by the end of the poem, the image can be as absurd as possible. And I think that in that way, it kind of keeps me from getting too voyeuristic, or not even voyeuristic, because I think honestly, the far-fetchedness, I think the thing is, it's about being like really, really dexterous and nuanced in who you're reading, right? So like, I say this as someone who's like a very profound, an avid lover of like Carolyn Forte, right? Someone who's like almost writing almost journalistically, but also someone who is like a Jay Wright or even a Yusuf Kamanyaka, someone who might just be completely using voice, in a way that is narrative or a news story. I think I don't know, lie to me perfectly. I think that that's the whole thing, like sometimes with voice, right? For the voice itself, not necessarily like the content. I think the thing is, there's so much anxiety for me in terms of, other people's perceptions of the speaker's voice and the poem's voice. And it's like, honestly, it's so much, it's really relieving when you kind of throw away that baggage and you just try to write something that's cunning. Like, I also feel like it's musicality. I think that's the huge thing about it, is actually musicality and image. And the metaphor can be there, but also I feel like Mary Oliver was somebody who was kind of like, whatever, lay it bare. This is what it is. So it doesn't even have to have that strong of a metaphor. It can actually be a descriptor. And that's a huge part of ekphrastic for me. I love it when a poem's title is like, it looks like a museum title of a painting.
No, I think that's great. Joseph, there's one thing. I felt like your musicality is one aspect of maybe how you pitch that control or that distance, or you're constantly tweaking the dials, I think, through sound. and it's maybe like telling the sense to come down or to tell the sense to kind of come up to where it needs to go or something at times. But I noticed the way that you really use sound in a way to recalibrate that voice in the poem, and the way the tone can kind of just fluctuate or something.
Yeah, I mean, I love rhyme, and these poems in Subtraction are really ruled by rhyme schemes. I mean, I use like a lot of like very traditional rhyme schemes, you know, iambic pentameter and all that, and then some other that I just kind of weirder rhyme schemes that I made up. But yeah, I feel like the rhyme is a great kind of like pivot moment, you know, where like you can really like turn the whole line around or turn on its head or whatever. And I think when I wrote these, I wrote this stuff a couple of years ago, and I wrote it really quickly. I wrote like, this is the first part of like the longer thing that I just wrote in a few months, and was really like intoxicated by rhyme, and haven't been able to get back to it since. Somehow it was all just kind of but yeah.
What about with you, Emily?
I also feel anxious about, well, everything, but yeah, I was imagining, Sylvia, after you were talking, I was imagining you like your metaphor being something you like a raft you throw into the swimming pool and then you like jump onto it, or I don't, that's kind of how it feels to me too. Like, also I'm a therapist, so I think that's how I think, but I'm always thinking about like, how can I be me, but also as curious about you as I am, you know, like I want both things. I want to be so free, but I want you to be free too. And so I feel like a poem is a way for me to navigate that.
So when you're writing, then are you thinking about this kind of vague person across from you or in the room with you, or is that, do you feel the presence of another person when you're writing, even if it's not directed to your father, or if it's not directed?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's an impulse that comes up, that there's something comes up about being human, and I'm like, ooh, I want to do something with this. And then I wonder if anyone else feels this way too. So I find a metaphor. You know, I'm like, so the metaphor is like where maybe we can both exist, like that freedom thing. Yeah, like, oh, this is mysterious. And for me, I've figured out to use images, sound, yeah, to navigate that, make sense of that.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, you know, like, you know, I was having students write ekphrastic poems as well, Sylvia, the other day, and the notion of like, how do you not just repeat what's there? And that's, you know, I think what poems do really well is they find a way to enter into whatever that subject or subjects may be, with newfound spaces or newfound insights or newfound silences, not silences that are necessarily terrorizing or something like that, or awkward. They're more like, you know, a state of epiphany, even if it's brief. So there's a question that was actually direct message to me in the chat, and it was towards you, Sylvia. The question was, how do you tie in ancestry, both the joys and the sorrows of ancestry, into your work?
Yeah, that's such an interesting thing. I actually didn't even, I mean, I know I read a few, but there's a poem I wrote right now. It's in the Hopkins Review, and I'm really proud of it because I feel like it helped me really reconcile a lot of like anxiety, frustration towards like mass incarceration, law enforcement. And it's really a poem about my uncle who, you know, was an NYPD cop in the 90s, but I kind of was born after he passed. But in that same way, it's a bop also, I'm always kind of, and it's funny you said rhyme, Joseph. I'm always kind of running down the best form to put the content in. And that's really something that I think that's how I'm reconciling with it ancestrally, like the idea of the erasure, the silence. Yeah, like the cento. There's a cento that pairs with that bop. And, a cento is a poem made completely up of other people's poems. Or yeah, pretty much a line from others. And I had like really high hopes to like do 100-line cento when I first learned about it, because that's like the perfect cento. But I feel like I've had a few where maybe there's 17, maybe there's 20 lines, but having a full piece that is you're in conversation with, but there's also this kind of Rolodex that you've created, right, of the canon. I think that like that's kind of for me been like a life hack of like, yeah, the thing is too big. It is bigger than me, it's bigger than time and space. How can I rectify this like generational thing, honestly, within my own control? Like, and that's like the wand, I think. And I feel like that's the whole thing about, oh, should we teach the classics? Shouldn't we teach the classics? I don't know. I think we should amplify the idea of what the classics are and include more things as what the classics are, personally. But I mean, that's just like, I think there's also a contradiction, right, to where we are right now and like this moment. And that was one of the beautiful moments with like the Norman Mailer, I guess, hand job poem, right? I read something that was like Norman Mailer was terrible to Gwendolyn Brooks at like a thing. And I think I was in grad school when I read this, and it broke my heart. But also, yeah, the idea of reconciling people's corpses, I guess, since we live in a world where there's a very policed idea of good and bad. And I think that, yeah, even before this like policed idea of good and bad, there were people that had worked. And I think about this idea of all the time of Twitter and being able to follow our heroes. And I think that's a huge part of this ancestral thing of like public and private. Because yeah, I'm sorry, I think what's really telling about my work is I'm a big student of like Roland Barthes, the Death of the Author, right? Where is like space for just like the work? And I mean, I like came to this realization after just being so disappointed by so many people whose writing I loved. For example, Phil Larkin wasn't necessarily great sometimes either. And yeah, it's just like finding things out about people but still loving their work, and not even loving their work, knowing that I wouldn't be able to write if I hadn't. And I think it's all a lot. That's a long answer, but I think I'll wedge like I'll use a pivot by adding more to my arsenal of like form. It feels like I'm pivoting in my own direction. I'm meeting the moment by paving my own path. I hope that makes sense. Very long-winded answer.
It makes a lot of sense, especially that where you headed there at the end, especially because I think about that, like I'll teach someone like Heidegger and the students, I'm like, so I say, I don't say anything about Heidegger at first, and I'm like, guess what? He was an anti-Semite. Now, what do you do with this amazing theory that he had, and what do you think about that? And so we have this long conversation, but it's also like now take what he did well, and now you reuse that, like yeah. Take it and then reuse it, and
it's like Ezra Pound. I mean, I won't know what to say. Like, there's some really good writing. I hate it. I hate it. Like, but I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just such a good opportunity. Like, there's this great essay a long time ago by Svetlana Boym called "The Off-Modern Mirror," where it's like, modernism went so fast. It's like, we'll go back and take these things and make them new in ways, and then hopefully you're the person as well who can model better behavior and use these materials or something. Other questions that you all might have for one another, or any questions in the chat? I'll leave this open. Separate the poem from the poet. Yeah, sometimes it's so hard to do, and it can be so disappointing. I don't know. I think being a parent too, sometimes I think about that, the way I disappoint my children over and over, or so many stories they don't know about me. which they will at some point. Great question. What are you all reading right now? Hearing that, I love, that's what I've been doing at this conference the whole time. I'm writing down all these poets and writers who I'd never heard of before, essays. So what are you all reading right now that you'd recommend others to read?
I just started Zeros Were Hollow by David Larson. It's his second book of poetry in almost 20 years. It's really fantastic. It's a great follow-up to his first book, The Thorn, which is one of my favorite books.
Is it okay to say a not poetry book?
Please.
I really recommend this book called It's Not Always Depression.
Okay.
It's about how really will feel really like what you might think is depression is unfelt feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can figure out how to move from like defensiveness and anxiety, basically, which is up here, down into your feelings, she makes this model of this triangle and figure out how to like disarm your defenses and feel, you will might not need to like give yourself a million different diagnoses, self-diagnoses. I'm not against, diagnosis is fine too, but yeah, it's just a cool book. I don't normally read a lot of those books, but it's helpful. It's Not Always Depression. Yeah.
I'm going to check that out. But also, I haven't been reading anything outside of my students' work because I have to read so much stuff. But I will say that this piece, this one poem, this James Wright poem, has really gotten me through the past, maybe 10 months. And I keep kind of returning to it. And I know that, James Wright is honestly a figure in of its own. But I think that this is a poem that I remember being shown as a student and being able to show it to students, but also being able to kind of meet the language needed to I think this poem really exhibits is everything I love about poetry. And I'm always kind of rereading the collected poems of James Wright for the color.
Mm-hmm.
Did you all happen to see this film by his son, Franz Wright, The Last Words?
No.
No,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's really moving. And Franz Wright did, he was also wasn't Franz Wright also a therapist? Yeah, worked.
He has his own books. He's got. I did not know this movie existed. Whoa.
Oh yeah, there were some great. So in the once he knew that he was terminally ill, he started doing all of these recordings, hours and hours and hours, I think, of audio recordings. And some of them are just brilliant. And he'd just read poems and he would talk to his wife and knock things off the shelf. And really open.
Thank you.
Open.
Yeah.
Yeah. Open. He talks about his dad, I think, in some of them as well. And he did throughout his work. But I was really moved by that. There's if you go down a rabbit hole a bit, I think you can find a podcast that is a good frame for the materials that are in the film.
I appreciate that.
Well, I think I could keep going and going and going. I think one thing I always love about these is there's the Q&A afterwards. But I just really appreciate your all's time and being here and sharing your work, and it's something that I always look forward to. And I say this every time, but it's I look forward to it as a 3 o'clock reading, because then I can go back out into the day and I feel so caffeinated with you all. And also you all are so open and forthcoming and generous in your work and as people. So thank you so much.
You, Jordan.
Yeah.
Real
and again,
pleasure.
I'll put this on the website. We'll probably, when I get home, either on Sunday or this week. And so anyway, thank you so much for being here, everybody. There won't be any more Common Sense readings until the fall. Those will be in person. The first 3 will be in person in Kansas City, and then there will be some more remote readings. I'm already starting to matchmake here, people together and all of that. So look out on the website. I also still stay on Facebook only for that reason, really, is to keep this common sense notices going, but I'll post on Instagram too. Anyway, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone being in the audience, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Bye.